let's break down a story that honestly has it all. A charismatic CEO, a promise that sounds way too good to be true, and a staggering 2 billion naira that just vanished. This is the anatomy of the 2 billion naira disappearance. So this is the big question, right? How does a company with 2 billion naira in investments from real people just evaporate overnight? This all played out in Nigeria, and it affected hundreds of ordinary folks. We're going to unpack exactly how something like this can even happen. All right, every story like this has a starting point, and this one kicks off with an offer that was, well, almost impossible to resist. It all came from a man named Amba Chichuku, the CEO of a company called Gavis Logistics Limited. Now, if you looked at Gavis Logistics on paper, everything seemed totally legit. I mean, they were in real, tangible industries: logistics, haulage, e-commerce services. It created this really convincing appearance of a stable, profitable business. You know, the perfect cover for what was actually going on behind the scenes. And here it is. This is the catch. Behind this legit-looking company was an absolutely mind-blowing promise, a mouth-watering 50% return on investment. And let me be clear, we're not talking 50% a year. We're talking a flat 50% ROI, period. So what does a 50% ROI actually mean? Well, it means if you invested, say, 1 million naira, you were promised a profit of 500,000 naira. Look, in the real world of investing, returns like that are basically unheard of, especially when they're guaranteed. This was the first and honestly the biggest red flag. It's the classic sign of a Ponzi scheme, where money from new investors is used to pay profits to the earlier ones. It's a house of cards, and it is mathematically guaranteed to fall apart. With a promise that huge, you can probably guess what happened next. The offer set off an absolute investment frenzy. People were just rushing to get a piece of the action. We're talking more than 400 investors who poured their money into this company. But, you know, that's not just a number. Every single one of those represents a person, a family, who is pinning their financial hopes on that incredible promise. Yeah, these weren't some faceless corporations. These were everyday people. They were investing their hard-earned money, their life savings. Some were even taking out loans, all because they believed in that one promise. And when you add it all up, the total amount that was collected is just staggering. 2 billion naira. That's the kind of financial hole that was about to open up under everyone's feet. So you had this empire supposedly worth 2 billion naira. But really, it was an empire of illusion. It was a castle built on sand, just waiting for the tide to come in and wash it all away. And then, just as fast as it was built, that empire crumbled. In November of 2024, everything changed for those 400-plus investors. This timeline really shows you how quickly it all fell apart. So after launching and collecting all those investments, the critical moment hits in November 2024. The CEO, Asamba Tochukwu, just vanishes. No money, no returns, no explanations. He was just gone. And so was 2 billion naira. So after he disappeared, you can imagine the panic that set in. But the story doesn't actually end there. Nigeria's Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, they got involved, and the hunt was on. For months, can you imagine? The investors were left completely in the dark, just frustrated and anxious. The guy they had trusted with their money was just nowhere to be found. One source called it a hide-and-seek game, but this was a game with devastating real-world consequences. But that game finally came to an end. On September 3rd, 2025, the EFCC managed to track down and arrest Agwamba Tochukwu. He was taken into custody to face interrogation over the whole alleged fraud. So what do we take away from all this? I mean, this entire episode is just a huge, if painful, cautionary tale for anyone out there looking to invest their money. It really all boils down to that timeless piece of advice we've all heard before. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Any offer that promises ridiculously high, guaranteed returns should set off major alarm bells. So let's wrap this up with something practical. How do you spot something like this? Step 1. Always question unusually high returns, like that 50% we saw here. Step 2. Be super wary of any get-rich-quick promises. And step 3. Just remember that while it might look like it's working for a little while, in the end, crime just doesn't pay. And that kind of leaves us with one final question to think about. In a world that is so full of investment noise, how do you sharpen your senses to tell the difference between a genuinely great opportunity and a catastrophic red flag? Something to keep in mind